Hey everybody, I am back for another installation of my whole art video series. In the last video, I talked about using a practice which I call All Is Me in the artistic process as a way to circumvent ideas, thoughts, labeling, and generally mental activity that interferes with our perceptions. And it's basically just imagining that your artistic materials or medium is you, is an extension of your body. The idea being that we become so familiar with things that we stop actually perceiving them. So if you take away the label and say and believe it's temporarily that it's just you, you'll actually be able to perceive it more because it becomes more mysterious. So in this video, I want to introduce a variation on that. And talk a little bit about both of them. The variation that I'm presenting today is very similar, but instead of seeing everything as you, in this practice, you see everything as a dream. So all your perceptions you're framing as a dream. This is actually a common practice in Tibetan Buddhism. It's the daylight or waking part of dream yoga practice. Because if you condition your mind to recognize that this is a dream, you're more likely to do that when you're dreaming and then have lucid dreaming. Like, oh, I'm dreaming. And that's what lucid dreaming is recognizing that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. So, it can be used for that, but I've been using it for the artistic process. And both of them, both All Is Me and All Is Dream, have similar impacts on how I perceive the world and my mediums and what I'm doing, and it can be pretty incredible at times. I find that I need to balance the two. I can't rely on one solely. Because if you're always looking at everything as if it's you, or in my case, me, it can get a bit solipsistic and narcissistic. It's like a slight difference between that and everything is about me, which I'll discuss another time, but tends to deaden the creative process, narcissism. So that's the downside of temporarily believing all is me. The downside of seeing everything as a dream is that it tends to make people not take their experience seriously. They can dismiss it as, even unconsciously, like, this isn't real, this is just a dream, so it's not important. Especially people who don't really enjoy dreaming and don't get a lot out of their dreaming or don't have very interesting dreams. If this is a dream, then it's like, so what? Just, oh, another dream, that's boring. So that practice tends to be better if you have interesting dreams and you love dreaming. And so I tend to use them both. Oh, and the other downside, the downside of saying that all is dream is also that it can be nihilistic. You know, that's another way of saying that, oh, this is just a dream. So you kind of have to balance them out and see which egoic pit you're falling in. Am I getting a little too narcissistic or am I getting too nihilistic? And then use the opposite practice. These practices kind of can probably seem kind of kooky, but they're actually based on truth. Because we don't actually perceive the world as it is. We don't. I mean, speaking biologically and factually, we don't perceive the world as it is. I am not seeing this plant actually as it is. What I'm seeing is just the photons bouncing off this plant as they hit my retina. So all I'm actually perceiving is photons and the lack thereof on my retina. I'm not. Who knows what color this actually is, but it's reflecting green photons that are hitting my retina. We have no way of knowing color outside of through our retina, of the perceptual mechanism of our retina. In fact, I think I understood once that everything is black. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not remembering that correctly. So I'm actually not seeing the fern. I'm just perceiving photons and the lack thereof on my retina. I'm not actually hearing that noise that was just outside. All I'm experiencing is activity in my inner ear that got triggered by sound waves that came from outside. Who knows what that would actually sound like if I didn't have a brain or an ear or a pair of ears. So we're never actually perceiving the world as it is. We're all locked in our own sensorium, and that's all we know other than the fact that we exist. So ultimately, all any of us can really be certain of is that we exist and that we're having experiences of phenomena. So these practices are just kind of like honest. They kind of ground you in the truth of this is all me. This is just activity within my brain and perceptual organs, or this is all a dream. And there's no difference between a dream and activity within your brain and sensual organs, other than in the dream, the perceptions are originating from within your consciousness rather than from without, if that distinction can ever even be proven. So, these practices then have many functions. They kind of ground you in the truth of your perceptions. They cleanse your perceptions of any illusions you have that you're perceiving things in an external world as they actually are. And they circumvent the mind's unconscious tendency to label everything and thus not actually perceive it clearly. I realize I should clarify that. A good example of that is when I was little, I was drawing trees with crayons, and I would always make the trunks brown. And my sister pointed out one time, have you ever looked at a tree trunk and seen what color it is? And I grew up in Missouri, so we didn't have redwoods. And when I looked at the tree trunk, it was actually gray, just different variations of gray, sometimes green, sometimes brown, sometimes, but mostly gray. And I realized that my idea about what trees are, based on cartoons I had seen and paintings and any number of things, were superseding what the actual perception was. In some ways, that's what I'm talking about, but we just do it with labels. So instead of actually noticing the tree, we just say tree, and then we label it as tree, and it gets all the other perceptions of trees we've ever had gets put on top of that. So not just cartoons and paintings that I saw as a kid, but every other experience that you've had, especially as you get older and older, of something that has the same label, tree, person, house, whatever, that gets overlaid on the perception of the object or person or thing. And so we end up perceiving things through our mental abstractions, beliefs, and previous experience. We're constantly carrying around our previous experience with us and perceiving everything through this thick lens of our past. So these practices of saying that all is dream or all is me are a way to circumvent that and really kind of screw with your head so that you actually become curious and perceive what's actually going on in that moment. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm actually seeing this, but I can become more cognizant of what I am perceiving in the moment so that it's not so overlaid by the past, my experiences in the past, my beliefs, all that stuff. So I might be actually seeing more clearly what's happening and becoming aware more clearly of what's happening on my retina rather than cursorily becoming aware of it and mostly being in my head with beliefs and ideas from the past. And the experience then of actually perceiving things as you're perceiving them, what you are actually perceiving, becoming aware of what you actually are perceiving, and getting around all that past conditioning and past beliefs and all that kind of stuff, it can be pretty inspiring. So, I think that covers that. That's all I wanted to talk about today. In the next video, I'll get into some ideas about how if you're an artist and your work is not being celebrated or appreciated or enjoyed by a lot of people, how that can actually be a real gift. It can be a real thing that benefits you and your process if you choose to look at it that way. So I will end here, but I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and thanks for watching. Bye.